Hey there, and welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to tackle something that, let's be real, can be a huge pain: reading dense academic papers. But this isn't just about surviving them. We're going to show you how to turn what feels like a frustrating chore into a repeatable craft that you can actually master.
You've been there, right? Where you've read the same paragraph over and over, and the words just swim on the page. Nothing sinks in. It feels like you're wading through intellectual mud. I want you to know, that is a universal feeling, and I promise you, it has nothing to do with how smart you are. It's because no one ever taught you the right system.
And that's exactly what we're going to build today. Here's our game plan. First, we're going to frame the challenge. Then, we'll walk through a three-phase process: the prep work, the active read itself, and then how to make it all stick. Finally, we'll tie it all together into a system you can use from here on out.
All right, let's get into it. The biggest thing we need to do is shift your entire mindset. Stop thinking of yourself as a passive sponge, just hoping to soak up information. Instead, I want you to see yourself as a skilled craftsperson. And this text, it's your raw material. You're going to learn how to take it apart, see how it works, and then put it back together in a way that makes sense to you. Now, here's a secret that might surprise you. The most important part of reading well happens before you even read the first sentence. Seriously. The single biggest mistake most of us make is just diving in totally blind. A little bit of prep work makes all the difference. And that prep work is a super simple three-step warm-up. First, you frame the text. Who wrote this? What conversation are they a part of? Second, you do what's called a skeleton skim. Just read the title, the abstract, the section headings, and the conclusion. This gives you a map of the territory. And third, you set a clear goal for why you're reading this. This whole process takes, maybe 15 minutes, but will save you hours of confusion.
And check this out. This shows the power of making a quick prediction. After just a skim of a well-known political science paper, you can jot down something like this. Now, you're not just passively reading anymore, you're actively hunting for something. You're basically saying, all right, Ross, you made this claim, now prove it to me. It totally changes the game.
So you've done the prep work. Now what? Well, that brings us to phase 2, the active read. This is where we get our hands dirty. This isn't about letting the words wash over you. Think of it more like a conversation, or maybe even a wrestling match with the author. Your job is to engage, to question, and to really understand every move they're making.
Okay, the first big obstacle for most people is jargon. You hit a term like derivative discourse from a really dense theorist, and your brain just wants to shut down. But don't panic. The key is to just stop for a second and define it. What does this actually mean? Well, it just means that a new way of thinking is using the old ruler's vocabulary to argue back.
And boom! Just like that, you translate it into plain English. See? That wasn't so scary. Derivative discourse is just a fancy way of saying nationalism talks back to empire using empire's language. Now you own that concept. It's not intimidating anymore. You can do this for every key term you find. Now, this right here, this is your secret weapon. For every single section, for every few paragraphs, I want you to ask these 3 questions. What's the main claim here? What support are they using? And what's the connection back to the big picture argument? Look at how it works for Varshni's research on ethnic conflict. It just cuts right through the noise and breaks it down into simple, logical chunks.
And keep in mind, this whole strategy adapts. It's not one size fits all. If you're tackling a quantitative paper that's full of stats, the tables are the argument. You read them first. But if you're reading a pure theory paper, you're tracking the logical flow, the spine of the argument. The tools are flexible.
Okay, so you finish reading the last page. You can relax now, right? Well, not quite. Because the real learning, the part that actually cements this knowledge in your brain, happens after you close the book. This is how you move stuff from your short-term memory into your permanent intellectual toolkit. And it all starts with the number 1. Before you do anything else, your mission is to boil that entire, dense, 30-page article down to its single most important sentence. You have to force yourself to find the core thesis. What is the one single idea the author would want you to remember if you forgot everything else?
So once you have that one-sentence foundation, you build on it. The next layer is the one-paragraph map.
In just 4 or 5 sentences, you're going to lay out the entire journey of the paper. This isn't just a simple summary, it's like a miniature blueprint of the author's entire argument.
And for those really important texts, the ones that are central to your project or your class, you build the one-page summary. This thing is gold. It becomes your go-to reference sheet that you can look at months or even years from now and instantly remember what that paper was all about. And here's a technique that is so simple, it's almost funny, but it is incredibly powerful. Try to explain the paper's argument out loud. To a friend, to your dog, it doesn't matter. Just talk it through. The second you hesitate or stumble over your words, boom, you've just found the exact spot where your understanding is weak. It's like a diagnostic test for your own brain. So we've got the tactics for a single paper. That's awesome. But how do we turn this from a one-time trick into a durable, long-term skill? Because the real goal here isn't just to read one paper well, it's to build an entire mental library of ideas that you can connect and draw from. You do it with deliberate practice. You got to treat it like a workout plan for your brain. So for the first couple of weeks, you just focus on structure, doing skims and writing that one-sentence thesis. Then you start mixing it up with different kinds of papers. Then you add some speed by using a timer. This isn't about talent, it's all about consistent training. And every good craftsperson needs a toolkit, right? Here are a few great options for note-taking. You don't have to use all of them. The key is to know which tool to grab for which job. Cornell notes are great for speed. A literature matrix is amazing for comparing papers. Argument maps are for you visual thinkers. Find what works for you. And, of course, no system is perfect. You're gonna hit roadblocks. So let's do some quick troubleshooting. If you find you're just copying long quotes, stop. Force yourself to write that one-sentence thesis first. If you're getting lost in endless footnotes, make a park for later list and come back to it. And if you're rereading the same page forever, use a timer. Remember, the goal is comprehension, not perfection.
And there you have it. That's the system. It's a framework that takes you from feeling overwhelmed to feeling in control, from being a passive reader to an active, skilled craftsperson. The tools are all yours now. So the only question left is, what complex, fascinating, important topic are you going to master first?